The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB-TV. Hot topics, food, fun, entertainment, and serious business. Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese.
Okay, I am so excited with my first guest today on Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese. You won't recognize this man, but he is famous. You are looking at the President of the United States, kind of. Also, coming up a little later on, a local woman, Marcia Campbell Bergenfeld, whose jewelry designs are just blowing up. She's got national celebrities now who are wearing her work. Las Vegas locals doing really well. It's just amazing. But we're going to start with the man known professionally as the Donald. We've got John Domenico, who is here. He does a lot of impersonations, but the one that he's known most for is, of course, our president, Donald Trump.
So true, I have to tell you. Really incredible.
He was, how I met him was just a few weeks ago. Mona Van Joseph says, the Mystic Mona says, you've got to come and meet this guy. He does the best Donald Trump ever. And I'm thinking, yeah, whatever. I get down here, I am mesmerized. Forget Alec Baldwin. This is the guy who SNL needs to talk to.
That's right, SNL.
Yes.
I want to be on the show. Alec Baldwin sucks.
So, of course, we're going to be showing, you're going to be showing, just during this interview, you're going to actually be able to see the guy that you're going to run into, like at Walmart or something, and probably go, gosh, he looks kind of familiar. But you're seeing behind us here the actual pictures of him in person when he's in full regalia, the hair, the makeup. But what really gets me are the mannerisms. Okay, so before we get into that, tell us a little bit about how you got started. I was doing some research, and I really kind of related to you on this. Starting doing impersonations because of a speech impediment.
Yeah, I had a speech impediment.
I had a speech impediment too.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Okay.
and so I know.
So you can relate.
I can definitely relate to that, but I also can relate to how that makes you listen, because now you're trained to actually start working with your own voice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I grew up outside of Philadelphia in a little town called Ambler, Pennsylvania, and I grew up in a row home neighborhood. So in the warmer months, people would sit out on their steps or stoops or whatever you want to call them. So there was always a built-in audience, and I was always a ham. And I had found early on that I could do voices. I could do Ed Sullivan and James Cagney and Humphrey Bogart, and it shows you how old I am. And I used to watch Ed Sullivan, and then I would go outside and I would do John Byner's act or Rich Little, whoever I had saw, or David Fry, who was a big influence on me. And I would just, now right here on our show, the fabulous Garbazzo brothers. And my neighbors just thought this was hilarious. This 5, 6, 7-year-old kid was doing these voices. And what I had found doing the voices is that I didn't have the impediment anymore. Right. You could understand me. So it was very affirming, and it was nice to have adults, pay attention to you. And once I got into first grade, they tested me and all that kind of stuff. And because when you had speech impediment back then, they want to see if you have learning disabilities, which I had. But I had speech therapy from 1st to 8th grade 2 times a week for years. And it really helped me speak. But as a professional performer and impersonator and impressionist, it really taught me the mechanics of understanding how a voice works. And Trump's like the perfect one to take all these little pieces and put back together, because there's usually 5 or 6 things that you want to focus on when you do an impression. So you're looking for nasal placement and throat placement and cadence and actual vocal production.
Yes, and also the body, the
body. That's a little that comes a little differently, but because I'm trained as an actor, so all these things you take them all together, and I'm able to. I don't feel like I'm an impersonator. I feel like I'm playing whoever I'm doing. So if it's Austin Powers, baby, you know what I mean, baby? Yeah.
Austin Powers as well. Okay. Really quickly, we're going to show a couple of the videos that you shot with Mona, and the one if it's okay with John, the promo that he shot for Doing It with Styles. That is, and it was a mark, because I was sitting here during that. Your brain was so quick. John just came over and said, "Well, can you do it this way?" And you were just like, "Sure." kicked it out like you had already like read the script or something. It was mesmerizing.
That was one of the things doing improv for years and years and years in New York. So it's all those things, and I love improvisation. And if I know the character well enough, I can improv in character, relatively easily, and it's fun. And if whoever gives me whatever details I need, I kind of can take those in and then spit them right back out in character.
We're going to take a real quick look. Check it out.
Hello, everybody. It's me, President Trump, here in the Oval Office. You know what? There's so much fake news that today I want to bring you some good news, some tremendous news, such fantastic news. I'm bursting. I just have to tell you about WWDBTV. This company is incredible. They're better than anybody else. If you need anything put on video, anything at all, from a concert to a wedding to a showroom presentation, these guys can do it. And they have a tremendous studio too. They can actually make the studio look like the White House. Isn't that amazing? And they do it better than anybody else. And they do it with styles. Get it? With styles. It's an inside joke, but you'll appreciate it later. So make sure when you need something put on videotape, call them. WWDBTV. You'll be so happy. It's going to be huge.
I just thought that was magic. All right, now, so tell me, what made, because you started back in 2004 doing Trump?
With Trump, yeah.
What made you decide to start doing Trump? I mean, had you had some history with this?
Yeah, there's a long story with Trump. It's odd. As an actor, I've always been fascinated by business too. I've always thought business was interesting.
Because you graduated from Temple with a degree in speech communications.
Yeah.
So you were already thinking along those times, and then you went into theater.
Yeah.
But you were actually already kind of into politics as well.
I spent my senior year as an intern for U.S. Senator Arlen Specter. Right. So I knew, I've always been fascinated by politics, but I always knew I was going to be an actor. So my senior year, as opposed to being an intern at the Walnut Street Theater in Philadelphia or someplace like that, I thought, you know what? I know what I'm going to do post this. Let me just focus on something different. One of the other things is policy and legislation and things like that. So I was able to get the internship with U.S. Senator Arlen Specter. So I spent my senior year doing that.
Heavyweight.
Oh yeah. I mean, he was the guy who came up with the magic bullet theory for JFK, but he was a great senator, and he really represented Pennsylvania very, very well, and he was a very well known senator. You can say I
remember the bad and I knew
people knew who he was, so he was great to work for. So there was this confluence of things, me being interested always in acting and performing, but also in business. And right around when I was getting out of Temple, 85, 86. I noticed that there wasn't any big American businessmen. Like at a certain point in our history, there was Carnegie and the Astors and all these Rockefellers who were like dying off. There wasn't a big businessman at that time. And Donald Trump, no matter what you feel about him, his timing is amazing.
Yes.
So he kind of stepped into the void and said, I'm a tremendous businessman. I'm the biggest builder in all of New York City, which, at the time he actually wasn't, but he stepped up and people were like, oh, he's the great American businessman. And he wrote right around that time, 86, 87, he wrote Art of the Deal.
Right.
And my wife at the time actually bought me that book. I still have it to this day with her inscription in it, which was very funny. But I always found him just this unique, fascinating guy.
And he came along at a time where, the late Robin Leach. That whole cult of celebrity was just getting started in the media.
Right.
And so he came along at a time when, like you said, he was this big businessman.
Right.
But we hadn't really had up until then on the national level, and the media loved him.
Yeah, he
was just like a magnet.
Yeah, and he was that whole conspicuous consumption thing, and then I used to spend my summers in Ocean City, New Jersey, and I worked a lot in Atlantic City, and then Atlantic City, I worked for him at the Trump Plaza, and then in 90 I worked for him, and then in I did his 55th birthday party as
And did you have
Austin
any
Powers.
idea at this time, as you're hanging out with him, that this is a guy I might be known for impersonating at some point?
What it was, he's been talking about running for president since 1980.
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't realize that.
No, and he is a big, huge, what I can put that. Ronald Reagan was almost like a mentor to him, not directly, but he watched his campaign.
Right.
And if you look at a lot of the writings now, a lot of the things that he uses politically are things that were coming right out of Ronald Reagan's mouth when he was president.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Even Make America Great Again, which was part of Ronald Reagan's.
So he's been thinking along these lines for a very long time.
Right, and he's been saying the same thing. There's a 1980 Rona Barrett interview with him.
That. Yes.
Yeah, where he's talking about China. China's killing us. They're absolutely killing us. Right. So he's been saying a lot of the same. This is the 80s. Yes. So he's been saying a lot of the same things over and over again, and he's had this kind of worldview that he's now that he's in office. And again, he ran multiple times. A lot of people don't realize that he ran as an independent 8 years ago, and then this last election cycle before the one that he won, he actually was here the day he dropped out.
Really?
Yeah, he was here. He's speaking to a group of Republican conservative women, and he dropped 4 F-bombs. And the reason I say that is because that's when I knew. I had a friend who was working at CNN, and they were saying, NBC's saying he's got to come back for he's got to come back, and he pretty much had made the deal he wanted with NBC, and then he dropped out of the race. Right. And it wasn't. And then this last time, the last election cycle that he won on, his timing was perfect. His timing is really what's incredible.
Well, and also if you really do your research on them, which I have, because I'm obsessed with anybody who, for some odd reason, just polarizes people so amazingly as he has. So I want to look back at the truth, like look at both sides and how he's come into being. And you see where a lot of the, like, let's just use Roger Stone as an example. A lot of the political operatives for every president have been political operatives for previous presidents. So they kind of know the Washington game and they know how to position their candidates. What I really love about Donald Trump is that he's being his own man, and watching people twitch in the winds about it, then watching your impersonation being so spot on to find out that now you were sort of already in his circle in a way as you were coming up, not as a plan, but just sort of like God just put you there.
I just happened to. I was always fascinated by him and his story. If you go back, like the person who took him under his wing was Roy Cohn.
Yes.
So you've got that connection. Who knew not just politics, but street fighting and how to put this all together. So
Roy Cohn was like one of the most famous and infamous attorneys in U.S. history, who was sort of like involved in everything, the mob, legitimate businesses, everybody. He just knew where all of the skeletons were buried and had tremendous respect pretty much at every level of society who had to work with him, because whether you loved him or hated him,
you feared him.
Whew,
yeah, and he was Joe McCarthy's right-hand man. So when you put all of this together in 2004, when the first season of The Apprentice had ended, and that kind of solidified Trump for a lot of people, because a lot of people they don't realize that show's a show. They actually thought he was running the show. He was just an actor on the show, but the show was so successful, and it kind of came together that now his profile was so much higher, and I got a call for a voiceover, and the voiceover, they said, hey, we got this. It was a Friday. The voiceover audition is on Monday.
Now, had you been doing Trump at all?
I hadn't been doing, but
so
even rolling around in my
head. To call you for that?
Because I was in the New York market, and I was doing a lot of difficult characters and voices at the time. So a couple of agents would call me and say, hey, are you doing this guy yet? Are you doing this guy yet? And they called and said, are you doing Trump? And I said, no, but he's kind of been in my universe for many years. I've actually met him a number of times. So I said, just give me like a couple of hours and see if I can kind of figure out where his voice is. So it was a matter of sitting down and mapping his voice.
I love the part you got the hand movements just so
mapping it out on paper. I have to tell you, because and then I wrote down where's his nasal plate, where's his throat plate, all this, and I called them back and said, okay, I can do it. And then it went in on that Monday. And what the missing piece of all this is, after I said I could do it, I ran out, bought the first season of The Apprentice, which had literally just come out on DVD, which was so great. And that weekend I just stayed in the house, took more notes, and just watched there was 30 hours of material, but it was really the bonus material that was the best, because on the show he was reading prompter a lot of the time, and you could tell, because Rick, Steve, it was very
almost like wooden.
Yeah, it was very wooden. But when he was just talking his self in the bonus material, which necessarily to make it to air, you could tell he was much. These two, I like these two. You guys have a romance, don't you? Right? Am I right? I can tell you that these two right there, and that there's the charm. he's a charming guy,
He's a very charming
and he's
guy.
very personable. And the show didn't really capture that, but those outtakes and kind of the bonus material that was there. And he speaks in multiple ways. You know, in interviews he speaks one way, on Howard Stern he speaks a totally different way. On the show, so there were different Trumps, and I had to kind of figure out what's the Trump most people know.
Right.
Because if you ever heard him on Howard Stern, you really wouldn't recognize. Well, I would have to, it's a totally different thing. You know, Melania is very beautiful. It's very low key. And he's in the studio, but when he's doing a stump speech, he's in a a big 35,000 seat arena, and he's really. Can you believe this? Can you believe? Unbelievable! What the FBI is doing. Terrible people. Terrible people. So, and he's got that repetitive thing that he does, and he's very tangential in his thinking. So if he starts in one thought, he's going to probably go into 5 different directions before he circles back. So that's, I try to incorporate all those things. Because he'll say, last week we were in Chicago, right? Chicago, tremendous city. By the way, largest building in the entire, what is it? Trump Tower. There it is, Trump Tower. So we're in Chicago. By the way, crime-ridden city. Crime, just a mess. So anyway, we're in Chicago. He can never complete a
And I
thought.
love the staccato delivery he goes through, because I come from, my mom is a singer, and everybody in my family, I come from a family of talkers. And so I've grown up with sound and listening to people and hearing the cadence and their timing, and because you're right, people speak differently depending on their setting, which is what has always tickled me about Trump from the very beginning, is people will hold him accountable for the way he speaks in one setting, where they don't really realize that in real life, that's how we all do it. The way you talk to your mom is not the same way you talk to your colleagues at work, or the same way you might talk to a stranger in the grocery store. But because we do it so automatically and people aren't checking us on it, we don't even realize that we've slipped into these different modes of speaking depending on who that audience is. So if you're a president of the United States, let's face it, we've had some boring presidents who just speak one way, and they're always that way. But he really encompasses the whole range of his personality based on the setting.
Because if you listen to someone like Bill Clinton, Bill Clinton always pretty much speaks the same way.
Really,
hey, how you doing? Good to see you.
Right.
And, with Trump, the interesting thing was I went back and I was able to watch some depositions of him, which are really fascinating. Because, he's sworn in under oath, and he's trying not to say too much. So I've tried to watch him in all these different environments. And when he did announce, and I knew I was going to be doing him a lot more because the phone was ringing off the hook and I was traveling nonstop, I always like to keep updating my impersonation and impression. Like because he started adding something where he goes, that was a new thing. And during the debates, he was, and I was like, what is this? It was so weird. Like all of a sudden he was sniffing, and I was like, wow. So I want to incorporate all those different things. And I went back, and you were talking about being musical. You remember Groucho Marx?
Yes.
Okay. There's a Groucho Marx component that I kind of inculcated into the impersonation and the impression, because Groucho used to sing, hello, I must be going, I came to say I cannot stay, I must be going. Trump does that kind of thing where he goes up and down, and what do they talk, and there's a little bit of Groucho in there. And when I really wanted to fine tune it and was doing all of this other stuff, I thought, who else is from Queens? Who else is from Queens? Does anyone else speak like Trump? Does anyone? Because it's such a unique way of speaking. And I thought,
see, my parents were born and raised New Yorkers. So I used to love, as a child, and still, when they would get on the phone and start talking to their relatives, it was like a foreign language for me as a kid, because I'm a Las Vegas girl.
Yeah, because you could hear
and I could hear them just. It was just automatic.
Yeah.
And they would get on the phone, and there's this thing that would come out of their mouths that we as kids never heard, because they were just talking to us. But when they would talk to their family, they just went into that, that
New York
New York thing. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting with him because he doesn't really, every now and then he'll hit something and it's New York. He gets that little bit of New York in there. And I used to watch the opening. I have it on my phone. I keep a lot of voice samples on my phone. But if you ever watch the opening of The Apprentice, he says billionaires. And I was like, who talks like that? But the closest person who speaks like Trump, believe it or not, is Christopher Walken.
Yes, now that you say that.
Because Christopher Walken does that same thing with his voice, and he takes all the punctuation out. Donald, what are you doing? You know, and he constricts his voice. So it's fascinating. Yeah. So there's a little bit of Groucho in there, and there's a little bit of Walken in there, and then when you put all those things together, believe me. Right? Am I right?
Well,
I have to tell you.
Hopefully, Mona won't be mad at us, but I want to show the thing that you did with Mona.
Oh yeah, that'd be
she
great.
was actually reading your future.
Yeah, and that was a real reading.
Yes.
I want people to know that was a real reading in character.
Check this out. Yeah.
Mr. President, it's an honor to meet you. Never in a million years would I have thought that I actually could meet the highest office in our treasured land.
Well, I'll tell you what, when General Kelly told me that you, Mystic Mona, was the person, the only psychic who predicted that I was going to win the election. I had him set up this little table in here in the Oval Office. Isn't this tremendous? Have you ever been in the Oval Office?
No.
This is amazing. There's no corners. It's all ovals. It's amazing. You can't hide in here. You can't hide. You can't hide.
And I will always remember you as the person that introduced me to the Oval Office.
See that?
It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
It truly is. Now, don't worry about the cocktail party. We're going to get back to that as soon as you give me this reading about the future. By the way, I don't believe any of this. It's all about your hokum. I don't believe any of it, but when people talk about me, I just love it. I love it. And a little me time, this is great.
Right, and this is all about you.
This is incredible.
Yes.
So, everyone's so mean to me. Are you going to be nice?
Yes.
You're going to be nice?
I will tell you what the cards want to reveal to you.
Ooh, I like that.
So with your left hand,
my left hand,
would you draw me 5 cards and place them in a little pile in front of you, please?
5 cards.
Any 5 cards.
Is it okay if I pick them? Because I'm not much of an artist.
Yes.
So drawing them would take a while. Okay, so I'm gonna do this one.
Yes.
And this one. And this one. You said 5?
5.
5.
5. Number of communication.
That would be great if my term was 5 years. Then I'd be 10 years in office. And I'm just gonna do this first one too.
Okay. Now I'm gonna set these cards aside because they don't have anything to do with what I'm about to tell you.
You're fired. We'll get rid of those cards. You'll never use those again. You'll never use those again.
What bothers you the most is the amount of compromise that you have to do in this job.
That's amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I want to do it my way.
Yes.
I'm like Frank Sinatra. I want to do it my way. I'm an idea. I want to do it my way, and I got to talk to the Republicans, who I like generally, except Jeff Sessions. He's messing everything up, and the Democrats, they're horrible people, and then the press. So this is very good.
So the amount of compromise.
And is that 2 Chinese guys?
Well, they are Asian in this picture.
Asian
so,
looks Chinese to me.
What was
terrible people, the Chinese. Terrible people. Great takeout, terrible people.
Okay.
Making it very hard on me.
So this is the card in traditional tarot.
Is she naked? She looks naked.
Actually, she is naked.
Wow.
In my deck, she's naked, and she's floating on a lotus leaf, and she's just imagined that she wants a shooting star. And like
that's me. I'm a shooting star.
Like you've created everything you have. Nobody's given you anything.
Nothing.
Right.
Nothing.
So, but it's the card of the magician, which means you have all the tools to be as successful as you want to be.
So true. So true. So far, you're batting 1,000.
Well, and then this card is saying how lucky you are to be president.
Well, that's true. It's true.
And it proves that.
Not that I'm lucky. The United States is lucky.
Actually, it proves that anybody can be president.
I don't know about that.
Well, it's what it says. It's you being in the right place.
We're going to get rid of that card.
Well,
do we need 5? We get rid of that one, still have 4.
Okay, it's saying that you were in the right place at the right time.
Oh, that I believe.
With the right opponent.
Timing.
That's exactly it.
Timing.
Now, it's really funny because when I do readings for people privately, there's a card I call the Donald Trump card.
Wait a minute.
This
Am
one
I
right
getting
here.
any money on that card?
No, because
like
it doesn't say your name.
Like a little residual, royalty?
It doesn't say your name.
Okay.
But it's a card called the Rebel. It's you doing it your way. Now, here's what's happening, though, is that your way is getting a lot of resistance from people.
I know. It's terrible. It's terrible. The fake news is killing me.
Oh, my gosh. And what it's saying is you're not sure you want to play this game so much any longer.
Really?
So according to these cards, it may say that you're not going to run for re-election.
I don't know. I really haven't thought about it. Well, you know, I have given it a little bit of thought. Between you, it's like doctor, attorney.
Client privilege.
Perfect,
yes.
perfect. Because what I was thinking is, I've already accomplished everything that I wanted to do.
Yes.
The wall is underway.
Right.
The economy is doing absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
Lowest unemployment in the history of unemployment. Everyone's rich and everyone's happy. I mean, you really can't do
what this is saying is you want to go back to being a billionaire.
Right,
You want
I
to go
do.
back to the billionaire life. You don't really want to do this anymore.
Right, I don't like all the pressure. I don't like all the pressure, but I do want to see Space Force through.
Oh, well,
I think that would be great.
That'll happen.
Space Force.
That'll happen.
I just love the way that's Space Force.
Yes.
Space Force.
So,
it's great.
may I answer any questions for you?
So this
By
is.
the way, may I call you Donald?
Yeah, for this you can. For
Okay,
this you
all right,
can,
but I'll
because
never
it's a
refer
private
to you. Yes,
moment.
I will never
It's a
refer
And
you-
you're not recording. You're not like
Oh, no,
Omarosa,
no,
are
no,
you?
I'm not.
You're not recording anything.
No, this is totally private.
Okay.
All right. Do you have any questions?
Well, I don't have any specific questions. I like what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. What this card is interesting because even though I'm a billionaire and incredibly successful person, I've always felt like the outsider.
Well, that's because when you chart a new course, it's always the first one through the wall that's bloody.
Wow, I like that. I'm going to use that.
Go ahead.
I'm going
It's
to
yours.
use that because we're trying to do amazing things,
Yes,
great
we
things,
are.
and change things.
Right, and
and
you're
I'm getting
doing-
a lot of resistance. A lot of resistance.
Yes.
So these two are these are really right on target.
Right.
These are really right on target.
Now, if anything, it's saying that the hardest thing for you to do is compromise with other people's
Which
views.
is true
It
because
just
I'm a
says
deal
it.
maker. I make great deals.
Yeah,
fantastic deals, like
you-
the Iran deal.
Yes.
Bad deal. We're out of that. We're out of that. We're making new deals with Mexico.
Yes.
Great new deals with Mexico. I love the Mexican people. Tremendous people. And I love their food. The Oompa Loompas and the quesadillas and all that stuff. Everyone has it all wrong about me. I respect them a lot.
Well, Mr. President, these are absolutely fantastic cards. The biggest message that I'm getting for you, though, is that you may not run for a re-election. I think you'd rather go back to having fun.
Well, I'd like to be able to do something and not get a lot of flack from people.
Right.
You know, everyone tells me, you know, don't do this, and you should do this, and you shouldn't do this, and you shouldn't cross your arms, and you shouldn't say fire and fury, and you shouldn't threaten to bomb. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Bombing places is tremendous. We dropped a lot of bombs in Vietnam, World War II, you know,
But
Guam.
this says you're tired of fighting.
Okay.
You're tired of fighting.
I am a little tired of
Yeah.
fighting. I would love to spend some time with Barron, my son.
Yes.
I haven't seen him in, 2.5, 3 years now.
I know.
You know, and Melania, she's never around.
Oh, well.
She's never around. I mean, the White House is very big. It's a very big house. It's very hard to find. Is there a card for her in here?
No, this is
No.
all about you.
It's all about me. That's great. I love that. This is my favorite part of this evening. Well, thank you so much.
Mr.
Do I
President,
keep these? Do I keep
no,
these?
these go home with me.
They go home with you.
Yes.
Okay, but no one can use these cards again, right?
Well,
These
no,
are,
they're reusable. And
they're
Mr. President,
reusable
it's
cards.
so wonderful to
Thank
meet you.
you so
Thank you so
much.
much.
I'm getting like a telepathic thing right now. That's amazing. It's amazing. You're so good at this. Thank you so much.
My
and
pleasure.
don't worry. Let's go back and you can have a drink.
Time
and there's
for a martini.
plenty of food. Mona, just to be clear, we have psychic client privilege, correct?
Absolutely, Mr. President.
All right, fantastic. Now, just so we're 100% clear, this is for you.
Oh my goodness, that's bigger than Stormy Daniels' check.
Huge.
And that was a real reading. And I was sitting here mesmerized because I could tell just when you went into character, if I didn't know any better, I would be thinking I was seeing double. That really, the Donald was sitting here in the WWDBTV studios. Honestly, if I just walked in thinking, how did the president get here and there's no Secret Service? It's just like, this is so good. And I told you at that time, it's like, you are so much better than Alec Baldwin.
Oh, thank you.
Because
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
think that a lot of times people's own political, and I want to be very clear with you folks. We're not taking a political stand on anything. This
No.
is what this man does for a living. He is an actor, and so there's no politics involved. He is able to inhabit the essence of somebody else, and that's what a good impersonator does. But I don't think you're an impersonator. You are an actor who's
That's
doing
how
this
I'm trained in.
role, and that's your training, and you just nailed it straight on so many different levels. It's
Thank you.
not just the physical part, not just the vocal part, but it's the aura part. You know, you inhabit that space. Yeah.
Yeah, I try to capture the physicality and that just he you know, I remember when I did his birthday, his 55th birthday. I remember when he walked through the door, and he just came in. He was just and he's a big guy. A lot of people don't realize, like, he's 6
a very
feet,
big guy,
very broad shoulders, and he takes up like the whole doorway. And he just comes in, and he kind of he's very confident, you know. And I thought, oh, that's great, and I kind of filed that, you know, back in my head. You know? So, and then in 2006, I actually appeared for him on Fox and Friends because he was unavailable, and it was a cross promotion for Embassy Suites and The Apprentice. So I was on, this is 2 years later, The Apprentice now is like in its second season, it's exploding. He was unavailable, so this the publicist, the company that was setting up the whole thing with Embassy Suites found me, and then I got approval, and then I came on as him. And it's still online. It's on my YouTube page. It's horrible, you know, edit, but it's me on, you know, talking about it. And it went so well, they kept me on for 3 segments. And it was great, and that's the first time I was ever on national television as Trump in 2006.
Now, when you have to get into costume, what is it like from start to finish? How do you kind of bring it from John Domenico to I am now president and leader of the free world? I mean, like, just the hair alone.
Yeah, the hair alone's a big help. The hair alone's a big help. And when I'm in a hotel room, you know, everything's unpacked and I lay it out. And when it's time to start getting into makeup, I put everything on the bed and have everything ready to go. And then the makeup and the wig, and I have photos of him, really good photos that I keep that really are more about his hair and his face. The Time magazine cover is perfect because he actually has very ruddy skin, and there's, you know, I worked with a makeup person to do the makeup design, so it takes about an hour for me to get that look. He's not as orange as he used to be, so I had to back off the orange, but
the foundation wasn't working for him. Whoever was giving him that foundation.
So I age around the eyes and do the white around the eyes, and then I do the bags around the eyes, and then I used to bleach these, but they were starting to fall out, so I let them grow back in, and now I color those. But the first thing is the wig.
Yeah.
Because once I have the wig on, it actually changes the structure of my face. Visually, it doesn't change the structure of my face. But for me, it's like, okay, the wig's on. With that color, I can do my face. Now my color palette has changed, so that helps me get all those pieces.
And see, it's interesting that you would say that because a lot of performers that I know, they actually start with the makeup.
I know they do. I know they do, and I'll do that. I do that for all the other characters. I do it for, you know, Austin.
Because you do Mike Myers.
Yeah, all the Mike Myers characters and Dr. Phil and you know, people like that. But for him, it's just I've got to get into the character. It's really
and it's funny too because now that you say that, what's the first thing I do when I'm looking at him on TV? What do I do? First thing I do is I check his hair.
Right.
Because I don't know who his people are in Washington, but they got to decide on the color. Because it goes anywhere from yellow to platinum to back and forth, whatever.
Because he does like a temper. What do they call the rinse? A temper. What do they call that?
Sure.
But I think semi-permanent rinse.
I think that's something that people do is that they look like my mother. When I first started in TV, the first thing she would, baby, you got to do your bangs a little bit. But I was like, Mama, what about that great live shot I did? She's like, and then I finally started hanging out with people who weren't in TV, realizing that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Once you get past the hair and then you get past the skin, then they can hear you. But until then, they're too busy kind of going, what is wrong with that?
Oh yeah. If looks can throw you off, and it was one of those things early on. Like that's why I pay so much for my wigs. They are theatrical wigs. They're very expensive. They're the ones used in movies and TV. And my original one was made by Bob Kelly. He used to make all the wigs for Saturday Night Live.
Wow.
Fortunately, he passed away, but he made all the wigs for all the Broadway shows. Then when I moved out here and I had to retire that wig, a lot of the wig makers from Cirque are amazing wig makers, and the woman who's made my most recent wigs, Bree, she's incredible. And the very last wig, we decided to do full-on Trump, and what I mean by that is Trump's hair comes down about here, and then he flips it.
He's got that comb over going.
He's got that comb over, and we had been cheating that for beautiful. These are real human hair wigs, but we thought, let me really do the real thing for this wig. So we, so we built the wig so it flipped over, and that way we could really duplicate his hairstyle, and it looks amazing.
Because when I saw you when I walked in, I was just so taken, and I just met you, so I didn't want to just get right up on top of you and go, wow.
Oh, I've had people stand right next to me going, that's your? They're like, that's your hair,
so
right?
good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's the beauty of the French lace, because it's glued on, and then it looks like it's growing out of my head. Because what I want to do as an actor, as someone who's done theater and off Broadway, I want to remove any of those things that are going to hamper the buy-in.
And distract
I want the
someone,
buy. Yeah, I want you to be totally bought in. I don't want it to be like he's too short, or he's too this, or he's too that. It's like whatever I can do to make myself look like the character that helps you buy in, and then we hear the voice and the physicality and all those things. So early on, it was Trump ties and Trump suits, and getting the makeup just right. And I want to minimize those things that are going to pull you out of that. I want that suspension of disbelief. It's theater. I'm creating a theatrical moment.
Okay, I said politics aside, but as you're doing these performances, do you run into people who are projecting however they feel about Trump, whether they support him or don't?
Oh, absolutely. And what I've said in other interviews is like I became an avatar for him. The BBC, Channel 4 of the BBC flew me to the White House. This was August 2016. And I'd done just tons of interviews. And most of the interviews ended with, who are you going to vote for? Which I thought, But they were the first ones to ask, who do you think will win? Yeah. In August of 2016, I said, Trump in a landslide. Because I've been doing so many events, anywhere from
you're out there actually meeting the people who
and
are
I
involved.
saw what was going on.
Sure.
It was overwhelmingly for Trump. And these events, since I was, and he did travel a lot, but he can't be everywhere. So I became this avatar for him, and people would come up to me and they would whisper in my ear and say, I'm voting for you. We'd take a photo and they'd say, my wife hates you, but I'm voting for you. I had people tell me that they had told pollsters that they were voting for somebody else and not him because they wanted to throw people off.
Right.
It was it was overwhelming. And I did SEMA here right before the election. Right. And we had a line out of my booth for photos. And every person, beyond the photos, they just wanted to talk to me.
And they knew that you weren't Trump.
They knew I wasn't Trump.
Right,
but they just wanted to talk. They were so excited. And I think that's what a lot of people missed at the New York Times and Washington Post was the enthusiasm gap.
Right.
But this guy just created enthusiasm. People really wanted for him to win. And on the other side, it was just significantly less.
Well, and also, even though President Obama gets credit for being the first president who really came up at a time when social media had become prominent in our society. And so he benefited from his campaign reaching out that way. But it seems like Trump cashed in on it.
Oh,
he
totally.
Understood from Hollywood, from TV, and from his own self-promotion, the power of social media, which made a huge difference.
He was built for social media.
Yeah.
He just has this appetite to be heard like every single day.
Yeah.
And to have 53 million followers on Twitter and I think the same number on Facebook, that's an incredible platform.
Yeah, yeah. And so how does that affect your social media?
Well, I mean, it keeps me busy, and most of the photos on my Twitter thing are me as Trump, and I got verified recently, so I'm like, oh my God, I'm a real person,
Yeah.
So,
are you enjoying this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel very lucky, to be able to work and perform, and I've gotten to meet so many amazing people in the industry and shoot commercials and movies, and I was just over in Serbia shooting a commercial as Trump.
Out.
Yeah,
really?
and
Wow.
it's just so great to be known for something,
Yeah, and then to be able to engage with people, as you said, whether they love him or hate him, you actually you're not campaigning, but you're getting to actually meet his constituents or people
100%.
and hear what they have to say in person.
Right.
Yeah. So what's on the horizon for you? Before we get that far.
Right.
Do you think he's going to be a two-term president?
Yes, I do, actually.
Why?
I do. Well, because he's he is getting. You may not like what he's doing, but he is getting things done, and that's really going to be what he'll be able to campaign on. Unless serious indictments come down. But honestly, he's like Teflon. I don't think anything would stick to him. And what he has done so far, he has kept his promises, what he said to his constituents, and you can see the support in Congress and the Senate and the Congress. So when you have that kind of support, and he is going to run again, he would. I would be surprised if he didn't win, even with the pushback that he has had so far.
What I risk in backlash in my political circles is for people who want me to take a side, or what I say is that I think a lot of people are missing the point. This is a democracy, and it's called, and if you're mad about something, then you get to the next election cycle. You get to get off your couch and you get to try to make a change, but you don't get to just complain about it.
And everyone's complaining.
In the meantime, if you look at the number of people who did not vote, who just took for granted, oh, he's never going to get elected, now they're mad about it. Well, because you didn't take any action, so now here's your chance to get out there. But I love the debate. I wish we weren't so incendiary with each other, but I love that people, in many ways, he has motivated people to take action that they might not have taken before, and also to recognize that this is the power of the presidency. So if you want to affect politics in America, this is your chance. We've got this thing called the vote. Go out and vote.
I totally agree with you. And he has, for all what people may perceive negatively, he has really stirred people on both sides. On both sides. I don't like to see the fossilization on both sides, but because we have to work together as a government. That's how everything has. That's how our country moves forward. So if you don't like him, go out and vote. If you do like him, go out and vote. Right now, what I find interesting is I grew up in a time where people didn't wear their politics on their sleeve, and now everyone has like an opinion. It's like, what do you know? What do you know? And I think a lot of people just do better in their families and their relationships and everything else, not to talk politics.
Growing up in the Cheese household, there was one standard, because my parents were both. I look back now, people say, well, why did you go into news? It wasn't a conscious thing, but now I understood, because my parents were news junkies. I mean, they read the paper, and you could have whatever opinion you wanted, but you had to back up. Okay.
Couldn't be emotional.
No, it had to be, well, I know this and I know that, and this is how I feel about this based on this information. You can just say, because I said so. My parents weren't because I said so people. And if you made a good enough argument, they would say, oh, I never thought about it that way. And I think that's kind of what's missing now in America.
I do too, because I think we all just need to be a little more pragmatic, and when you understand, it's very easy to just make a decision based on your emotion and pieces of information that fall in line with your emotional stance on something. But you can look at things, the metrics of things, and that's those are the real things.
Get out there and do some investigation before you just have a knee-jerk reaction to it. Well, my knee-jerk reaction to you was, I couldn't wait. I was stalking. You guys know I admit it. I stalk my guests. I do. Once I decide, it's like, you're going to be on my show, I'll call you every day.
That was you?
Yes, it was me. I'll find out where they live, knock on their door, bring my dogs, and it's like, you see these cicadas? Be on my show, but that's what I saw from the very beginning, and Mona could not have laid it out.
She's awesome.
You have to come and meet this man. I was like, and I was like whining because I was tired that day. I was like, I don't feel like it. Okay, I'll come. I was like, oh my gosh, because I'm so fascinated by American politics in general. But I really love what's happening with social media. I wish people would just be more proactive, and I love the way, whether I agree with his politics or not, but I love the way he's using this tool in America. It's a business tool too. So as a businessman, he saw that. As a performer, he saw that. And if you really look at the history of Ronald Reagan, you will see a guy who people just discounted as well. He's just this actor from California. Really? And now heralded as one of the the best presidents we ever had.
And he was the great communicator. And he was
a communicator.
And he was the president of the Screen Actors Guild for I think 4 or 8 years, and then he went on to be the governor 2 terms, and he did all the groundwork, and he was great at building coalitions.
But he understood performance. And he understood how to reach out to people, not just because now we're in a society, we're in a world. Yes, you could have the best platform in the world. If you can't sell it,
Right.
you're not going to get elected. End of story. You have to be a performer as well. And I think not just at the president, but if you look at any level of politics, who are the folks who get reelected? Most of them who are capable of going out and persuading people.
Right.
However you do it.
Right.
However you do it.
Yeah.
And you persuaded me to have you back on the show. Because
Absolutely.
when he runs, and you heard it here first, the prediction from Mystic Mona, her thing with you, and you heard it here on Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese. I'll stalk him at the next election cycle too. John Domenico, and he does not just Trump, but he does lots of other ones.
Lots of other characters.
Check it out on Fox. He was on Fox recently doing Mike Myers, Austin Powers. Amazing. Oh
yeah, and you go to my fan page or Twitter. It's Johnny D23 is Instagram and Twitter, and then it's John D Domenico Comedy on Facebook, and there's tons of photos and videos and everything else. And I'll be in New York all next week. I'll be performing at the Friars Club in New York City, and then I have some corporate events and shooting some videos.
We're going to be following you very closely. Thank you for being on my show. It's been fantastic.
Oh, awesome.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I'm so
we'll
honored.
follow you forever. We've also been following, as I said, another shooting star here in Southern Nevada, Marsha Bergenfeld, whose designs, her jewelry designs, she specializes in gems that just energize you and come from all different sorts of metaphysical, standpoints. She is blowing up on the national level too. She's coming up. So, John, thank you for being my guest. Stick around. We're going to hear from Marsha and her latest right here on Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese.
Hello, everybody. Very excited because I'm in a great mood. A great mood because I had a tremendous reading from Mystic Mona. Mona, you're amazing. How long have you been reading cards and doing all that psychic stuff?
Well, I've been able to read since I was a teenager, but I've been licensed in Vegas since 2002.
Well, let me tell you something about this lady. The reading was absolutely amazing, and it was dead on. And I would recommend that you get her at your next private party, corporate event, trade show, or if you just want to have her come to your house, or you can go to her office for a private reading. You will be so happy. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Believe me. Believe me.
Mr. President,
yes.
The only house I go to is the White House.
Oh, that's right. Only the White House. Tremendous.
We know Las Vegas is the entertainment capital of the world. You've just heard from one of the premier, probably the premier Donald Trump impersonators. You have John D. Domenico, who was on the show, just talking about this amazing thing. You saw his work. You heard him talk about how he embodies the spirit of Donald Trump and is doing amazing work, not just across the country. He was in Serbia recently. Okay, so he's worldwide. He's just global. Also worldwide, also global, is a woman who I've had here as my show. I'm just so privileged to get to know her and to consider her a friend, one of the most talented jewelry designers in the world, and her work is also taking off on a national and international scale. We have Marcia, it's Campbell Bergenfield. You want both? Okay, because it's easier to find her that way on social. I first met her, and I was meeting her because of her jewelry designs, and so I was already a fan when I first had her on the show. I'm even more of a fan now. Okay, let's admit it. Success is a fantastic, aphrodisiac. It just attracts you to people. Her work now is being featured. People are wearing her stuff, on national TV, and it's going international as well. This is a woman who does her work here in town. She actually makes these amazing designs herself. She doesn't have this crew. I think that's the thing that got me when I first met you. I just imagined that of course you designed your pieces, but that you had this workforce of people who are actually stringing these pieces together. This is your stuff.
And I was really humbled that you wanted to make sure that was certain.
Right, yeah. I got to go and meet her in her workshop and tell me how you got started, because you came from a real estate background, and at some point you said, you know what? This is what I want to do for a living. And you have just created some beautiful pieces, and you do this on a daily basis.
Yes, nonstop.
Yeah.
I wanted to create something on my own, just like a lot of people want to work for themselves. And I ended up manifesting for a few years, dreaming about it, and then MSUM, Enlightening Millions Synergistically Under One Moon.
And it's actually also named after your children.
Right. They all came to me in a dream, and I domained it in 2013, and didn't know what I was going to do, but just thought about it every day, and I started just making things. I am creative. You've been to my place. It just comes naturally, and I just love jewelry. And coming from this background, my dad was one of the largest ceramic tile and marble corporations in Vegas.
So in the back of your mind, you had that background. You didn't consciously know this is what you were going to do for a living, but it was already there.
I grew up with the marble and the granite and the stones, like the lapis, and all of that. And then now I am using those materials.
And you're not just using beads, because I'm one of those crafters. I go to Joanne, etc., or Michael's, and I'll get the little beads and put them together. No, you're at a whole different level when you come to picking your pieces and picking your stones and picking the things that you use to get them together. You are all about energy, the energy that these fossils and these minerals and these gems represent, what they're bringing from the earth.
Yeah, earth energy. I try to buy as many raw pieces that I possibly can.
Let's take a look at some of these things that you have. Your necklaces, they're just amazing.
Like, for an example, I made this cuff, and I ended up bidding on this piece right here, this Brazilian agate with this crystal druzy center. A lot of healing properties to this raw piece. And this is really gorgeous on this 3-inch hide leather cuff. And then I'll use the aquamarine right over there in the middle, the top right. That's all different cuts of aquamarine. But what makes that unique is that I've used that raw white druzy agate in the middle with different cuts of raw druzy. So raw, not so much so much work in a factory.
It's close
More
to where
raw.
it actually came from the earth.
Yeah.
When you actually put them into pieces of jewelry.
That's what I love. And even this water buffalo horn that's consciously sourced brings feminine courage and strength, and so there's healing properties and everything.
So I've actually gotten to see this, and so when you come, she just had a trunk show just recently, so she does a lot of shows here in Las Vegas. I try to get that out as much as possible on my show, but you actually have to come and touch these and see them in person to get the idea, because I think a lot of people, and myself included, they think of jewelry as, it's just an accessory, as opposed to you're actually harnessing the energy of the earth, of the atmosphere when you wear your pieces.
And you know what? It's true. It's absolutely true. Like a month ago, I was I was asked to make something for Kathy Lee Gifford, and
we're going to show those pictures. When I saw the pictures, I was like, oh my gosh, Kathy Lee's wearing my girl stuff. This is so amazing.
On her birthday.
Yes.
So she's looking for love, right? And then with the passing of her husband, she's still dealing with grief.
Sure.
So I did a stone, just for her. Rose quartz, different facets of this beautiful wrap rose quartz with that's the stone of love, and then the stone of strength and courage. Right. And then she ended up wearing that on her birthday, this big birthday celebration. So that was
on the air
on the
as well, right?
So that was a nice treat.
Yeah,
that was a nice treat.
And did you know that was coming?
No, I didn't. And so what's lovely about that is they're not only getting these beautiful pieces, but they're also getting the healing properties.
So you have the little cards that you've made up that explain to people what they're wearing and why it's important. Right?
And a lot of my designs come with more than one gemstone. So I have these cards made up with multiple gemstones on here. So
now you can find your work here at Stitched here in Las Vegas, but you're also at different shops, especially around the West Coast.
Right. I'm in Washington, D.C., the brand new MGM National Harbor Mall. The Miracle Mile in a high-end men's store there, Lazaro. Stitched, going on 4 years in the Cosmopolitan. Right. And then I have my studio, and my website, msum.com, and just I have a little humble showroom, and you can come by, appointment only.
And how do you source yours? Because when I actually went to your workspace, that's what I was so impressed with, that the vast array. And how do you keep all this stuff top of consciousness? Because I was so overwhelmed. Like, how did she even start to think about putting together these different and very unique pieces?
I take so much pride and you've been, you see how organized it is.
Yes, it's extremely organized.
And I've kind of made it like a trophy type atmosphere.
Right.
I don't know, I take so much pride in the jewelry and how they're all just like lined up, and then I have all that natural light coming in. And
Yes.
it's glimmering and shimmering all day.
I think you had to throw me out that
when
day.
yeah, we had clients
I was
coming
just
in.
sitting here, and I was just.
It was
I
fun,
think it was like
wasn't
2 clients later, and she was like, she was so sweet. She's like, Rikki, go ahead. And I was like, oh, okay, I have to leave now, because I was so enjoying the vibe.
Wasn't the energy amazing?
Your energy is amazing, and the stone's energy was so amazing.
You don't want to leave that space.
I didn't. It was just sort of like, I was chill. I could have, if you had put a futon down, I would still be there.
Oh.
It was amazing.
And that's what I get to work with every day, and it's addicting. I just love it. It brings so much peace to the area.
Bring people up to date on what it took to make your transition, because a lot of times I think when people see people who are already successful, you're successful, John's successful, they don't take into account the work that goes into getting to this place. They think that, oh, well, it looks like it's really easy. I can string some beads together, but it takes a whole nother level of commitment to get to the art that you create.
It does. It's kind of hard to delegate what I'm doing, because I love designing,
Right.
and very few people would know how to put together the multitude of gemstones that I'm using. I'm incorporating matte and flat and roundels and raw, and it's just a passion. But you have to work at it every single day.
And you did a lot of research when I had you on the show the first time. That's what impressed me, that you did a lot of research on the properties of the gems that you're working with. It wasn't like you just sat down and said, I'm going to string some stuff together and it's going to look really pretty. Yes, your stuff is pretty, but your stuff is also, you've sourced it. You've taken a look at what each individual component
brings
all
together.
about.
Yeah. And it's important too, because I have people that reach out to me and they're going through breast cancer, or they're going through major trauma, a loss, maybe quite a few family members that they've lost, and so I'm looking for the healing properties for that. And it's important to know what I don't want to. It's medicinal. There's a lot of healing properties to these gemstones. So, it's a passion, and I love helping people and putting a smile on their face, bringing a sense of calmness, and alleviating that anxiety or stress that they have. And because it does do it. It does.
Right.
It does.
So interesting. When she created 2 for me, and the reason why I don't have them on today is because for some odd reason the puppies, and maybe they knew you were going to be on the show today, because all of a sudden today, everybody wanted to bite me. It's like, no, stop it. Yeah. But they didn't do that before. It was almost like from the very beginning, because they'll gnaw me, they think I'm like a chew toy, but they respected the energy coming from the bracelets. Yeah. And I felt free to wear them, because I was afraid that they would sniff them and all of a sudden decide to play with them. Never did until today. They're sort of like, oh, like I was like, no, you are not going to mess with mommy's bracelets, because I'm going to go see Marcia today. And they were like, oh, okay, fine, But I was really taken, the respect that they had for them, and that's when I knew the energy. I felt the energy, but that they recognized it. My 2 Akitas, that they didn't even have a desire. They sniffed them and said, we're going to let that go. Instead, we're going to chew on your shoes, we're going to chew on the hems of your pants, but we're not even going to to do that. It's like, those kind of
nice.
cool. Yeah,
I like those dogs. They have a high level
they
of
got
respect
good taste.
for you. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
So, no, we have to load you up on some more things.
Now, the other star, and this is the one that really kind of got me, I was so tickled. So I was already tickled with Kathy Lee and, that whole national exposure. And then Gwen Stefani. Yeah. And, this is not something that you're not approaching these people. Somehow they're finding your jewelry, they're supposed to, and they're wearing it and enjoying it, and it's meeting tremendous needs for them.
Yes, but in the case of Gwen Stefani, when I knew I was doing an installation in the Miracle Mile, Planet Hollywood, the day that she was doing her launch, or her taking over
her residency, her
residency for J-Lo.
Yes.
And so I was privy a couple days prior, and I wanted just to get her something spectacular, so I was able to get it up to her suite. And fast forward a month later, she's wearing my beautiful designs that she looks so darn good in.
Wow.
So I love that.
Yeah.
I love sharing, and
Yeah.
just spreading it, spreading the love.
Well, of course, that's part of growing your business, but I just get the sense from you and from John, there is that next level of commitment. It's not just for you. It's, of course, you're making money, but it's also a passion. It's the expression of your soul.
And a determination to create something big. And you have to just work at it every single day. It's not easy. I mean, the photos, the editing, the blogging, the website, managing that, and then customer service.
Right.
I deliver these pieces. I want to make everyone happy, and so I'm super accommodating.
Right.
But just wanting to build a brand, slowly but surely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a lot further than I was. I'm a lot further now than I was when I met you.
Right. Yeah.
So.
And that's why. And I was both of them. I will stalk you if I want you to be on the show. And the reason why is because it is so important. Anybody who's out there who has a passion, they also have to know that getting to the point where you are now, where John is now, it takes getting up every day. It's what to think about. It's like, and you have a vision and you have an idea of where you want to go, but there's also the work. Aside from the creative part, which I was watching you do, but then all of the other stuff, making the calls, going out, making the sales, making the connections with people so that you are able to expand. Jennifer Romez from Sexy, Murray Sawchuk, who, the magician. Yes, you see the show, but there's all of this foundation that has to be laid for the success.
And then you have to start...
and you've got 2 kids.
And then you have to start cross-marketing.
Yes.
And... broadening yourself out of Las Vegas, you know, and then giving away and collaborating, and so that's what I'm working on right now.
Yeah, so it's just very, very exciting, and it's just, I really love to acknowledge, the guests who I've had on who are just making these huge leaps forward. And I always tell people, they'll say, well, how did you get into TV? In a way, and John and I were talking about this, and you and I have talked about this many, many times, you look back and you can see where you are now, how many people were instrumental, that not that you take it for granted, but that there were these people that are sent to you through the universe to kind of help you go to the next step.
Absolutely.
But you have to have a vision to be able to even see that help when it comes your way.
Yeah, it's so nice to have that support. I mean, I have had some amazing support behind me. They see your vision and they want to help you, and I really appreciate you embracing MSUM the way that you have. Yeah. But I truly believe that energy attracts energy, and we all want to be around good energy. Yeah. And that's uplifting, and so no, I'm fortunate.
And I'm so thrilled as a native to see how I'm one of those natives who loves the growth of Las Vegas. Oh my gosh, yeah. And to see the homegrown talent just taking off on a national level, because growing up here, you got the rap, you've got the history of Las Vegas. Most of these people were from somewhere else, and they came and embraced Las Vegas. So I'm really all about getting the people who are from Las Vegas, who are now achieving these amazing things, and Imagine Dragons. These types of folks who they went to Rancho, they went to Clark, they went to they went to high school here.
Exactly.
They remember back in the day when it was all desert, and you can appreciate what you're doing. There's the level of sophistication in your work. I think people sort of kind of take it for granted, and they don't realize, no, these are homegrown kids who are doing this. This is amazing. Yeah.
And I'm very proud to always get that out there.
Yeah.
Because I'm really proud, being born and raised here like yourself, and a lot of pride. I love Las Vegas. I'm creating a line for the Vegas Nights, and so that launches next week, but with beautiful gemstones.
Yes.
I
can't wait to see that design. So, because of course we have to have you back on for that too, because the Vegas Nights are like, oh my God. And I was one of those people who, I'll admit it, I've taught hockey in Las Vegas. How is that oh my goodness.
I love it.
Even when I was going to UNLV, I wasn't wearing a whole bunch of Rebel insignia, but I found myself going, I think I want to wear our Vegas Golden Knights thing. It's like, that's the first one. Yeah.
Me too.
So when you said you were going to do a line for them, I thought, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it's that sport is the agility that it takes. Yeah,
Yes.
a lot of passion.
Yeah, yeah,
You know.
and it's very raw and it's very primal, and that's what I really love about your work and love about you is
Thank
that
you.
appreciation for the power of the earth, for
Thank
the
you.
power of the universe, and you bring it together in such a beautiful way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so great. Yeah.
You're welcome.
So how can people contact you again and keep up with all, because you have a lot of different performances here, and I say performance because that's part of it too. To get to meet you, to get to feel your energy, and to see that transformed into these pieces.
Thank you, Rikki.
Yeah.
Msum.com. They can follow me on Instagram, and you can shop right off Instagram, Msum Designs. And I have a Facebook page, but msum.com.
Msum.com. Yes, it's great stuff. And she does, so much good work. Your creativity with your videos. I think that one I saw when you were like, it was just you and your hands and your wrists, and it was like I was like sitting there going, ooh, this is really good. And I never even saw your face. It's like, but you guys don't even realize this girl is like really gorgeous. But the gems were really gorgeous too. So you bring creativity to your business model at every single level, and that's what I really love.
Yeah. When you put when you love something and love what you do, and you work at it every day, the world's your oyster, right?
It makes you happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for being on the show
you,
again.
Rikki.
Of course, you're one of the actually not really up and coming. People are just now finding you. I think you've always been a success. It's just that now people are going, I get to actually see it in person. So do not miss an opportunity. I will keep putting it on my social when you can get to see her, but if you can go on her sites too, you can get to follow her. Go out and meet this lady in person, and you will be as taken away as I am just to feel her energy, and then you will walk away. I think the first time I met you, I actually went back home and started stringing. Now, of course, didn't look anything like yours, but I hadn't touched my jewelry making box. It's like, I just want to do it. I just kind of want to remember what that was like to sit and create that.
We all get inspired by, by people, and I'm sure there's a lot of young journalists that are inspired by you, and that's what makes the world, go around. So what I do, anyone can do.
Right.
It's just that I have a passion of going to amazing mines and finding where I can get these unique gemstones. That's a passion.
It's very cool.
Thank
you for being my guest. Once again, when she does the Golden Knights, that whole jewelry line, we'll have her back on. You can find out how you can do it, because I want some biggest Golden Knight stuff too now for the first time. It's amazing. Very amazing.
My gift to
thank
you. Absolutely.
Thank you guys for joining us for this edition of Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese. We'll see you back here again next week. And also remember, we're on Facebook and we're on Instagram, and you have to like and subscribe us on YouTube, okay? See you next time, guys.